like to welcome Chris Sears today. We're going to talk about his club, the Indianapolis Pickleball Club. And I've had a chance to talk to Chris in the past, and he's doing some wonderful things with his club. And we wanted to just kind of learn from him some of the things that he has encountered as he opened his club. I think you've been open, 8 months, something like that?
Yeah, yep, officially opened in March of 2024. Yep. So
Okay, great. Great. And you're an independent club. You have one location, and you're looking at adding a couple more in the Indianapolis area, I think, over time.
that's correct. We actually have a second location right now. It's a pop-up site that was a former. It's a long story, but we're technically operating a second site that has 9 courts that are indoor courts on the south side of Indianapolis right now, while we work to build our new building on the south side of Indianapolis at the end of 2025.
Well, yeah, Chris, tell us a little bit, give us a little background on the facility. Obviously, on your website, people can see it. It is a gorgeous facility. I've not been to Indianapolis in many years, but the place looks great. Tell us about how you got started and the approach you took to developing it and what you offer.
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it fast in this scenario, right? I'm a lifelong tennis player. I've been playing since I was 5 years old. I still play competitively in tennis. That experience of playing in the club tennis world for me is something that's been synonymous with my childhood, upbringing, adult life. So I knew that member experience, I guess, if you will, of like the club tennis world, the community, the programming driven models, how that look and feel, the user experience on my end as a customer. And as I, fell in love with pickleball around 2018, 2019 is when I first started playing with some of my tennis buddies and, caught the bug. I didn't catch it right away, just to be totally fair. I do remember the first time I ever played. I remember walking away going, that was a ton of fun, but I'm a tennis player. So I'll play this like once a month maybe. And, thought pickleball players a little weird. I'd see them at the tennis clubs and stuff, and I was like, yeah, that's not me. Eventually, though, I did start to fall in love with pickleball around like 2021, and it was an identity switch actually. In my own head, I had to flip the switch. To go, I'm not a tennis player. I'm not just a tennis player. I'm now a pickleball player too. So once I finally made that identity switch in my own mind, that was when I really started to go all in on pickleball and really actively played a lot more, got more involved in the community, started to fall in love with just all of the aspects of the game. One of the things that I love most about pickleball is the community. Tennis isn't really like this a lot. It's very competitive in tennis. It's very much so, singles is I like to make this distinction between tennis and pickleball. Singles is the star of the show in tennis, and that typically leads toward more competitive, driven people, that are out there, individualistic. Pickleball is rooted in doubles. It's a team sport, it's a partner sport, and the community is rooted more in the partnership and social aspects of it. And that was something that I immediately hadn't really ever had in my life with the tennis world, and immediately fell in love with that aspect of the game. And I think the thing that caught my attention the most, that made me want to start Indianapolis Pickleball Club, was the approach of taking programming to ultimately suck people into this ecosystem, right? Like there was a local park down the street that was 5 minutes from my house, not even 5 minutes, maybe a 5-minute walk from my house, that in 2018, 2019, 2020, had 10, 15 people out there while I was playing tennis. They were playing pickleball, and I saw this group start to grow. I was, we were sharing the courts together, and I just saw how much fun they were having. And I went over there and approached them one day, and I was like, what are you guys doing? What is this? How are you all out here? That doesn't exist in tennis. People don't just get together spontaneously to go play. And they were like, oh, we're just doing open play. And I'm like, what is open play? Like I've never heard of this before. They're like, oh, just come in, hop in a game, have fun. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I came back and I, started to play a little bit open play with them, and that community, immediately was so inviting and welcoming. And I immediately fell in love with it. I started to get to know those people, the 10, 15 people that were playing at the local park. Year after year after year, that grew from 10 to 15 people to the next year. Every Monday every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday that they would do these open play events at the park. Went from 20 people to 50 people to, by the time 2022 came around, there was 100 people at the park down the street. I couldn't even get a tennis court anymore. Like, they don't even play tennis at the local park, Ellenberger Park, anymore. It's just pickleball. They roll out all the nets, they take out all 14 courts, and there's 100 people waiting in lines to go play at the park down the street. So that just community sucked me in, and I fell in love with it. And eventually along the way, I started to want to have the bring the club tennis model to the pickleball community. I was like, look, these people were playing in our tennis facilities. They were getting, secondhand stuff. They were getting all the basically everything that the tennis players didn't want, right? Like, they would get the crappy court time. They'd get the rollout nets. They'd get, drawn on lines. It was basically the stuff that the tennis players didn't want, right? And we were like, yeah, we'll give it to them. It's fine, Well, as now, when my identity switched to pickleball, I was like, look, they deserve their own good stuff. Like, if pickleball has, tennis has great courts and great lighting and great facilities and great experiences and great communities, like, they deserve their own place. So that was what we set out to do. I partnered with the community, with the Ellenberger Park Pickleball Club, the park down the street that I was telling you about. They had over 1,000 members who were playing all the time regularly at this park. And then I found Indianapolis Indie Pickleball Club. So they're a nonprofit here in the local Indy area that promotes the game. And through Ellenberger Park and Indie Pickleball Club, those two nonprofit groups, we all came together to form a true community center of Indianapolis Pickleball Club on the east side of Indianapolis. So the funny thing is where we picked the facility. I appreciate you saying it's beautiful. It is a beautiful facility. But the funny thing about Indianapolis Pickleball Club is it's in an area of the city where you would never have expected us to build this in the first place. As David knows, he's been researching Indianapolis a lot. A lot of these clubs are opening, like the franchises are opening up on the north side of Indianapolis, which is where, typically the wealth resides, I guess, the uber wealth, of the city resides, and that's where they're all focusing their attention on. Well, they all forgot about, the whole rest of the city, and there's 1,000 people playing at a park 5 minutes away from Indianapolis Pickleball Club. And then there's another 400 or 500 people playing at the park just up the road, and then there's Indy Pickleball Club, and pickleball is about the community. It's not necessarily a wealthy sport. It's not necessarily a country club sport, in my opinion. Like, you don't need technique and training and coaching like you need in tennis. As a tennis player, you can't really even play the game of tennis until, I don't know, maybe you've had 5-7 years of tennis technique coaching, right? Pickleball, you can walk on the court day one and be playing the game, right? You can't even play the game of tennis until 5-7 years down the road. So that naturally leads you to more wealthy areas that I don't need that. We don't need to be that in Indianapolis, right? You can put it wherever you want to. So I put it where the people were playing, and they've rallied around it, and our community has just rapidly grown.
How many courts do you have in the facility?
There's it's 10 courts technically, but we only operate 9 courts. But so it's 10 brand new facility. I got lucky. I found a contractor that was developing out this beautiful new brand new facility. No beams. I was very specific. Again, coming from the tennis community world and my playing experience, I had a very specific vision in mind of what I wanted to create. I wanted to take all the great things the tennis clubs do, the community aspect, the membership models, the programming, all the things that we all know and love in the tennis community. But then I wanted to layer on my personal background, which is in sales and marketing in enterprise software world. So like Salesforce, if you guys are familiar with Salesforce, that was where I worked at before I started doing this at Indianapolis Pickleball Club. So I have a really robust background in customer experiences and creating great journeys using digital technologies and means to be able to enhance that. So we took all the best stuff of the tennis world and all the things that I hated, which were calling people on the phone and going, hey, can I get a court time for next Tuesday at 4? No, we only have it at 4:30. Okay, let me go call my friends and say, hey, do you guys want to go do it at 4:30? And they're like, no, I can only be there until at 5:30. And you call back the club and you're like, hey, can I have this time? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just a pain in the butt. I wanted to get rid of all that stuff, get rid of all the barriers to entry, make it very seamless from a user experience, using technology to facilitate that. And that's what we've done at Indianapolis Pickleball Club.
You have a really cool looking facility from the website and so forth, but I think you've been able to build it out fairly economically compared to a lot of other facilities. Can you talk just briefly about, how much did you have to invest in your facility to have it up and running? What did you do to keep the costs reasonable
Yep.
for an independent operator? so that hopefully you have a profitable facility going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So the initial build out was somewhere around $250,000 for the
That's
courts.
great. Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't anything crazy. I got really lucky with a brand new facility. I would encourage anybody to work with local area developers if they're warehousing space. Brand new, beautiful. I could customize it to a certain level of what I wanted it to be before I started to customize out the rest of the business. So that was a huge win, I think, for us right out the gate. I didn't have to tear a bunch of stuff down. I didn't have to remodel. I didn't have to spend a bunch of money on construction costs to do all that other stuff. So I got an affordable spot in a maybe not necessarily a more desirable area of the city, but it was near where the community was, and it was where the community would support it. So those two things lined up for me there. And then from those elements alone, I was able to immediately make it more profit, or make it less expensive to launch, I guess, if you will. So because of that, and marrying in the whole idea of programming being really the key that we were going for there, we used open play as our number one marketing opportunity to grow the business. That's what everybody loves in the pickleball community. That's what everybody craves. This open play is what makes pickleball unique, in my opinion. So we invested heavily into that by creating a membership model where it was a no-brainer to pay for open play. We started out with $29 a month for an open play pass. Basically, it was unlimited open play. Come as much as you want. The community responded immediately. There's a lot of places that open up. They try to start, pay, I don't know, whatever, $140 a month or whatever it is to get people to come. That's kind of a barrier to entry in the pickleball community. There's a lot of people playing, but there's not a lot of people that are playing that are going to pay $140 in Central Indiana to go play in an indoor facility. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people that don't want to play. So when we did this, we really, really, really anchored in on that and gave it an affordable economic model to get people in the door. And slowly but surely, we built around open play where we have the best open play in the city. We invested in, we call them open play coordinators, people that are on the court, that are monitoring the courts, that are making sure, people aren't trying to turn their own thing into their own private game, and make sure that the level of play is good for each court. Then we actually started leveling the courts, and then we eventually, as it grew and got more popular, we started to verify the level of those players going into the courts with assessments and things like that. So our open play is legit. It is packed all the time. It's booked out for a month and a half, and that was all how we scaled it all around it. And then we built the business model around that. When the people were there and their friends were there, then we could start to invest in, actually making revenue off of those customers that are in the building around programming for classes and clinics and leagues and tournaments and pro shop stuff and sponsorship stuff and all the other areas of the business. Once you have those customers that are there every single day, it's kind of a magical experience when you walk into the club. Everybody, when they walk in, the parking lot's packed, the courts are packed. It just draws people in when there's people in there playing, having a great time, and doing what pickleball is supposed to be doing, which is having a great experience. So it's not exclusionary, and it just draws people in. That was how we did it.
When you started your morning sessions, were a little bit light in terms of the participants, but you came up with some strategies to get people coming in the mornings and so forth. Can you talk just real briefly about what you did there?
Yeah, so I went after the community influencers. Again, I'm a member of the pickleball community, and this was a coming together of the other pickleball communities in Indianapolis. So I knew who these influencers were. I knew what little public, community centers they played at, whatever it was. So I went and asked them, what do you guys want to get in here? And a lot of them were senior citizens, honestly, is what we built a lot of our morning open play around. We just gave it away for free. They all wanted their silver sneakers and their one pass stuff. So I said, fine, I'll go get it. I'll go talk to United Healthcare. I'll go talk to, the other people that need to be done, set up our agreements with them, allow them to come play, and they get free open play. We get a little bit of money out of it, but really, again, it's about getting bodies in the building, and bodies in the building bring more bodies in the building, basically, and everything starts to build on top of that. I thought that we were just going to have seniors basically in the mornings, in the early afternoons, and before I knew it, it wasn't that anymore. Now there's young professionals that are coming in the middle of the day. There's I don't know, people like myself now that are more flexible with their, business owners that are coming in at the beginning, in the middle of the day. And it really started with the senior population, to be honest with you. We pretty much gave it away for free to them, and they brought their friends, and then that attracted other people.
Well, I will tell you, Chris, I play at 5:30 every day at our club. So us folks too will get up early. Most of the retirees tell us, no, I don't want to play at 6 in the morning. I want to play at 11 because I don't have a job. I want to take a step back though, Chris, to the development of the facility itself. How did you, a couple of questions here. How did you actually find your site? What was the process like for you? Let's start there with actual locating a site. Here in Seattle, it's been very difficult. I'm involved with a club that just opened an 8-court facility, and we've signed a deal on another one. Was part of that process for the last year. Very difficult here in Seattle, both in terms of facilities that were even potentially feasible, but then the costs in so many cases were so astronomical, and landlords who were just unrealistic in terms of meeting facility at a place that is actually workable versus if you are a car dealer, Bed Bath & Beyond or whatever. How did you approach the process? What was that like for you in finding the empty shell, if you will?
Yeah, it's a great question. This idea in my own mind started around like 2020. I started to see, what was going on in the tennis clubs because I was a part of. I saw this every single day of the pickleball community growing in the clubs, even though they were getting the scraps that the tennis players were giving them. I saw it, right? I was there every single day with all these people in these environments. So for me, I started to fixate on this idea, probably back in 2020, 2021, really, of trying to bring this thing out. And everywhere that I drove in the city, this is no joke. I mean, everywhere that I drove in Indianapolis, my eyes were constantly darting back and forth on the road of, how big's that building? Can we have the ceilings this high? Is this what, I would stop my car all the time, look into places. I'd see any, signs are up. I'd be looking for real estate, all over the place. In Indianapolis, there's this old grocery store chain called Marsh that was a large grocery, like a Kroger or something, Albertsons or whatever it may be. And they were a local large grocery store chain. They went bankrupt in around like 2018, but they had been around for forever. And they had these massive facility footprints they left all over Indianapolis. So that's actually what a lot of the clubs are building out here in Indianapolis is old marshes. And I actually looked at a bunch of those old marshes and they weren't what I wanted to do. They were way too much money to rip and replace everything out of there and retrofit them, and huge, they were in very key prime areas. It was just way too much, like you said. So for me, I started to look more toward the warehouse model. I figured that was going to be my best approach, or best area to go after. And I found a few of them that were going to require a lot of retrofitting, actually, and we almost pulled the trigger on those. When I say me and the local area nonprofits, they were touring these sites with me and seeing like, hey, will this work for our community? Will this work? And we got to the point in time where I almost signed a couple leases, but just didn't feel right, or there wasn't scenarios that weren't right. So we went back to the drawing board one last time. This was in around mid 2023 at that point in time, and I engaged a realtor to finally start to like open up the search into different areas of where I hadn't been seen. She found the site that was completely undeveloped at this point in time, but they had planned to build this beautiful brand new facility, and it was going to be done at the exact right time. And they were building a sister site that they were almost finished with right next door to it as well. So I was able to tour that, see it really in reality. And then it was about selling the owner on letting me do it. He was pretty hesitant about this, to be honest with you. He was very much so, hey, you're a startup. This is a new, this is really risky. Like, how do I know this is going to work? I know pickleball's, cool and everything, but like, can you really do this? Can you really pull this off? And I had to sell him probably harder than anybody else, to be honest with you. I had to make a lot of guarantees, things that he wanted. I won't get into specifics of the lease agreement that we all put together on it, but I was able to convince him. I'm a lifelong career sales and marketing professional, and I think I just, asked him what would de-risk this for you, and we figured out how to de-risk it. And he graciously allowed me to do it, and now we're a show site. He brings people there all the time that he's like, look at what we can do, and we're actually working on our brand new second facility with the same guy down in south side of the city. That's where our next site's going to go. We have that temporary site that's going on the south side that we're kind of seeding that population, but this is where we're going to build a brand new building with the same developer, because now he's all on board. He's like, this is great. Like, you guys are doing great. very stable. The business is booming. He's bringing people in as a show site, you know, because it's packed all the time. And that's how that all worked out, I guess. Yeah.
I want to. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to jump in, Dave. Yeah. And then in terms of, so you found your location. How did you go about the process of selecting your vendors for your lighting, for your courts, and then the actual whatever construction you actually did?
Yeah. So, well, the construction was I went through the builder, right? So any construction needs that I had, they're a great construction company. So that was already, you know, that was an easy one for me. The lighting side of everything, again, as a lifelong tennis player playing in clubs, I knew exactly what I liked and I didn't like. This was really, really important for me. I thought to myself, I'm only going to invest in the things that really, really, really matter for the playing experience. That was my goal, right? The things that matter for me as a player has always been the number one thing is lighting. Whenever I walk into any club that I've ever been in my entire life, it was the number one thing that I remember. The number one thing that I recall is the lighting experience from day one. I can tell you every single club that I've ever played tennis in, and I'll go, oh yeah, the lighting's crap there. That lighting's great. This lighting's horrible. It's something that I've just, you know, a lifelong of playing in these things, I've gotten to know. So the lighting was very, very important for me. So I started to research, you know, what are the best lights out there? What are the best, you know, most premium things for pickleball? Did a lot of, you know, research on that end. I ended up settling into this company called Bright Court. Bright Court is they do direct and indirect. You know, it's a little, our lights are a little controversial. They're so bright and so well lit. I promise you though, like it takes maybe a second to get adjusted to, but now when I go into other facilities, I'm like blown away at how dark they are. Even the ones that I used to think were great lightings, I'm like, man, I can hardly see in here. Like it's crazy. It's like a cave, you know? So the indirect only lights, I'm not a big fan of. I do like some direct light on the court as well. But these were great lights that also connected into our reservation software where we could, you know, in our 24-hour model, it was a great way to be able to connect those dots together. Yeah, it was great. I mean, I really, really, really wanted to focus on that one. From the court perspective, again, I wanted it to be the outdoor court surfacing. That was really important for me. And I went with the best people in here in Indy that researched a bunch. They said that's who they are. So they did a great job. They delivered. I mean, they did an amazing job. Everybody loves our court surface.
You have a 24/7 facility, right?
Yep.
What was the thinking behind going to a 24/7, and how does that work?
Again, it was all about the user experience for me. I wanted to get rid of the barriers to entry that I've always seen in the club tennis world, which are, well, if they're not open, you can't play, right? You know, oh no, the last court time's at 8:30, and you're like, well, my kid doesn't go to bed until, you know, whatever, and I can't play, right? You know, and it limits people from being able to do it when they consume pickleball, when they want to consume pickleball and how they want to consume pickleball. So for me, that was an important element of how can I connect this all digitally with cameras, with, you know, on-court playing experience, with, you know, on-court cameras that we can, you know, record play and be able to do AI, you know, kind of cut-ups and highlight packages. So for me, that 24-hour thing, it's kind of a gimmick in this regard. You know, nobody really uses it in the middle of the night. Number one, like, I mean, I've only ever seen one person ever that has booked a court at like 3:30 in the morning. There's a lot of people, Josh, like you said, that play at 5, and that's fine. But I mean, you know, I don't want to staff it at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to carry that cost. That's why we have a membership model. If Josh is a member at our club, he can come in through a specific door that he gets a reservation software booking code every time that he books through. So we know he's in there. We have all of his information. We have his credit card on file. He's on camera everywhere that he goes. We've locked off certain key access areas in the building where you can't get into the things where like all the paddles are and all the pro shop stuff and, you know, stuff that you could actually steal. I mean, what are you going to steal on a pickleball court? A bench, you know, some balls. I mean, you know, whatever. It's not a big deal, right? And these are our members. So this is their community. Again, pickleball is about the community. Most of them take care of the facility better than I probably even would, you know? So it's, I trust them. It's a trust relationship at that point in time. And I want them to be able to consume pickleball whenever they want to consume pickleball. So it's flexibility, and it gives people that peace of mind to go, oh, you know what? Like, yeah, IPC is going to be flexible for us, and I appreciate that. I want to belong there, you know? So when I say it's a gimmick, it's not like a gimmick of they can't do it. It's just that it's more of a mentality thing for people. It's like a peace of mind. It's more of a that user experience where they feel that this matters to them,
In terms of potential insurance and liability issues as an operator, when you have that 24 access and you're not staffed, was that an issue at all with your carrier? Were there any sort of ancillary challenges or obstacles to overcome with that 24/7 access without you having somebody physically in the
I
facility?
never asked. So, I mean, so I guess no. I mean, I guess the answer is no. I mean, they didn't say anything to me, so I like, yeah.
Chris, food and beverage. What are you doing for food and beverage in your facility?
So you and I talked about this a little bit. I feel like there's a few different models in this business. One is the community-driven model, programming-driven model that we're doing. The other one is, entertainment, really, where you're trying to make money on food and bev, and pickleball is a sideshow of it. There's other models, maybe just the whole pure 24-hour, we only do court bookings and, whatever, and a few other things out there. But really, I think those are the two primary models, the entertainment or the community-driven model. And for me, like, I want nothing to do with food and bev operations. Like, restaurant margins are very, very, very limited. We're never going to do enough volume for it to really ever be a huge impact into our bottom line. But since this is about the community, I wanted to make sure that the community aspect of it, it could, if we did food and bev, it was going to enhance our community elements of it. So we do a lot of food and bev with a caterer. I partnered with a catering company. It was actually a friend of mine. He owns a local bar and brew pub here in Indianapolis, and it's a pretty well-known brew pub. So they do all of our food and beverage stuff. So it's their licensing, it's their liability, it's all their stuff. Whenever we have like corporate team building events, which we do regularly, or we have like Christmas parties, or we have, our own social events for our members, they are the ones that I handle. I immediately just put it out to them. They contract separately with Union Jack, which is our catering provider. We just handle the pickleball operations side of everything, and I have a rev share that I work on with him, basically. So it's not complicated for us. They handle it all. And to be quite honest with you, after I've seen it for about a year now with him, I don't want anything to do with food and beverage ever. Like, I mean, in all seriousness, it's a no. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. What do you? Let me ask you this, Chris. Again, our audience are, facility operators, potential facility operators, new and experienced. As you look back on your journey to date, what is the biggest mistake that you think you made? Or if somebody said to you, Chris, what in a million years should I not do? How do I keep from screwing myself? Yeah. What advice would you give?
That's a great
them?
question. I've actually given this advice to a few people now already, because this was I'm a very competitive person just in general. So when I don't like to fail. I don't mind failure because it makes me learn and all that good stuff. But like, I don't really love it. Nobody loves to fail. But when I do fail, I usually quickly try to iterate and fix stuff. The number one thing that I saw right out the gate, even with a robust sales and marketing background and in the world that I came from, we had a great build up to our opening. This is all about the opening side of everything. We had a great build up, and you guys have probably heard this from other people that you're going to talk to, I bet. So this is not going to be unique to me, I don't think, but this is the biggest lesson that I would tell anybody. We had this amazing build up. We had all the community support. We had pre-membership sales. We had, tons of people. I think we had over like 600 people in our database, or something like that before we ever even open the door kind of thing. And we were giving away free open play for the first 2 weeks to really celebrate. We had a big opening party. We did a charity event for Riley, which is the local area hospital for children, which is near and dear to my heart. And we had a big community support all coming together. Place is packed, the whole entire time for 2.5 weeks. I mean, it's just every single day, the same people coming in and out of the facility. I mean, we were already building habits with people, and they were loving it. They were loving our open play experience, loving all the other stuff. And then all of a sudden we said, okay, the free time is over. It's time to, for everybody that didn't commit before, it's time to commit now, right? And it's time to start to pay money. And then all of a sudden it was like crickets. I mean, we couldn't even fill our morning open play. We had 2 people that showed. I remember that day. Oh my God, I remember this day so well. These 2 poor people walked into our building like the first or second day afterwards, and I was still working the front desk, at that time, just to get to know the community, and our GM and I were kind of co-doing all this stuff to get to know our operations together. And we were like, well, I guess you got to go home because we don't have enough people to play open play today. I don't know where everybody is. Like, this is I don't know what is going on, right? So it was just like crickets basically, right? And it was terrifying, to be honest with you. It was terrifying because I looked at it and I was like, oh God, we've got to fill this place up. And I don't even care. I come from the software world, and when you have like a software as a service product, right? It's the cost has already been invested into the software. Like, it's get users using the product, and eventually, land and expand and grow and freemiums and all this other stuff, right? That's how that world works. And I didn't ever think about it before I did this. That really is the same kind of model in this world as well. The sunk cost is the courts. It's already been done. If nobody's using it, then it's on me at that point in time. I don't care if they're using it for free or if they're using it for $5,000 an hour or something like that. Obviously, it matters, how you can dial that up or not. But if nobody's using your product, if nobody's using your software, you're screwed, right? Like, there's nothing you can do until somebody is doing something. So I immediately went into scramble mode, and I'm calling all of our members that had been or all the people that had been coming, and I'm like, where are you at? Like, what's going on? What's happening? Like, why aren't you guys here right now? And they were giving me feedback, and they were saying, well, I play for $5 over here, and it's a little bit more expensive there, and it's a little bit more. You guys are, I think, charging a little bit too much for this, or blah blah blah. And I'm like, all right, that's it. I was like, what would make this a no-brainer for you to walk back in the door right now? They go, I don't know. What do you think? And I go, how about $29 for unlimited open play? Would you guys come in for that? Yeah, I'd do that. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, great. Here you go. Here's a new membership. We don't even have it on the menu. Here you go. It's done. I'll spin it up today. I'll send it over to you right now. Within 2 days, I think we had like 10 new members who were sold on this open play pass. And then 2 weeks later, we had 70 people on this open play pass. And now we have like 400 people on this open play pass, that now the community just started to build and build and build around this stuff. And then it was going to influencer to get them to come into the building, to work with the Silver Seekers programs, the United Healthcare, all these things, right? Well, the number one piece of advice that I would take out of that is, if you don't have a path and a call to action with your stuff that you're doing, pickleball is a hot sport, right? Pickleball is important. People like it. They're going to come, right? Anybody can get people to come at the beginning of stuff, but what is the journey that you're taking them on afterwards? What action do you want them to take? We should have been taking that time when they were in our facility, those first 2 weeks, of selling these kinds of things, or getting them to commit on something, or getting their feedback in person, or at least getting a Google review or something, like something. We just gave it to them and we let them go, and then it was like, where'd they all go? And now I have to scramble to pull them all back in, right? So that was the biggest piece of advice, is if you're going to do stuff early on, make sure that there is a clear path that you want to take those customers on with the journey with you.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chris. This has been really enlightening.
So Chris Sears is the founder of the Indianapolis Pickleball Club. And Chris, we really appreciate you taking the time and look forward to continuing to follow the journey here. And the bigger question I would end with is, what are you going to do when the weather gets nice again in Indianapolis?
Oh, great question. So this is where the open play pass model has been so beneficial for us. We were packed all summer long, just so you know. Our membership numbers weren't increasing as fast, but our courts were still filled. So I would be terrified on the other approach of everything. If you just went for court time and you just went for selling, a la carte, stuff, great. It'll be great in the wintertime. But what are you going to do in the summertime? You got to run a year-round business, right? There's a lot of people that want to play indoors. So our model, I was shocked. How many people were playing indoors all summer long. We didn't even have AC our first year. We're going to have AC next year. It was hot as shit in there. I'm not going to lie. Like, I didn't even want to play in there most of the time. And the courts were still packed. I was blown away. I mean, honestly, all of us were blown away. We were like, what the hell is going on? Why are these people in here? It is 92 degrees outside and we were all sweating our asses off. And it's like, I was blown away. So I'm not worried about it anymore. I mean, this is why we did what we did. And this has been a huge, revelation to me of going, just get people in the building, let them have fun, and we can still make money year round. And then it'll spike in the wintertime. We'll make more revenue in the wintertime, but in the summertime, we'll be okay.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us. It was really enlightening to hear your experience at the Indianapolis Pickleball Club. And we look forward to following you as you open more facilities.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for doing this for the pickleball community, and I'm happy to help any way I can.